Good day, I'm Larilyn Maligdong, and here I am today to discuss about developing the research study. Developing the research study. More research effort is wasted by going off half-prepared with only a vague set of ideas and procedures than in any other way. Planning for research. Historically, new knowledge has been sought either by means of deductive logic or through the use of inductive reasoning. Using the deductive method, we could hypothesize that library instructions improves academic performance. The scientific method of inquiry. Inductive reasoning helped develop the scientific method or scientific method of inquiry. This Renaissance approach to knowledge discovery gained major support in the 16th century. A general outline for research. An investigator usually starts a research study with a question. For example, a college librarian may wonder why library use is decreasing or increasing. After identifying the research question, the researcher should try to place it in a larger theoretical framework. General criteria for basic research. Universality. Study should be researchable by any other qualified investigator. Control. The parameters of the research study. This criterion is important for isolating the critical factors and for facilitating replication. Replication, it means that the research study is repeatable. Measurement, the observation and recording of phenomena. Of course, the data must be measurable for this activity. Vernon criteria for basic research. Reflective inquiry. Procedures or research design and data collection methods. Data gathering, processing, and analysis. Reliability and validity. For quantitative studies and credibility, trustworthiness, transferability, dependability, and confirmability for qualitative studies. Presentation of the research findings. This is Hernon's basic criteria for research, but there are more specific criteria for every type of research. This specific criterion will be illustrated in the following slide. Identification of the problem. The research problem is the topic to be investigated or what needs to be known. Developing a thorough knowledge and understanding of the field is an important step toward identifying research problems. Estimation sheet to determine the feasibility of the research project will be illustrated in the following slide. Main assumption of research by Jack B. Leiser. Research is complex because it is the pursuit of knowledge, whether basic or applied. In research, one's belief system is more important because it provides the domain assumption upon which researchers work. Understanding theories of knowledge, etymology, nature, and role of epistemology and ontology. Epistemology is the study of knowledge. Ontology is the foundation of everything, including knowledge. Epistemology is the foundation upon which one's knowledge of the world is built. Subjective or objective continuum. This subjective or objective continuum covers a wide range of knowledge viewpoints. On one end of the spectrum is radical subjectivism. Radical subjectivists believe in a phenomenal world. Methods and methodologies. Etymology and role of methods and methodologies. The habit of referring to research methods and methodologies as interchangeable is misleading. While the term method refers to a specific means of collecting data, the term methodology refers to the strategy surrounding the use of multiple methods of data collection. Methods, methodologies, and theories of knowledge. Theological criteria are used to select data collection methods. Many natural and social scientists now use the scientific method. Example, deductive research. Disciplines, paradigms, and theories. History and context of paradigmatic change. They are social constructions. They are the work of scholars and theories, not separate beings with separate lives. Another perspective on the emergence of new paradigms and disciplines. We classify people by their interests and beliefs by their theories, paradigms, or disciplines. We will be discussing people, the relationship, and the social construction that shape those relationships. People and their social relationship are the study's unit, not ethereal phenomena. Disciplinary dynamics component. The outward convergence tendency is best explained in terms of social organization. Conformity is usually voluntary and often unconscious, as most people in the discipline have been socialized to the dominant paradigms, ideologies. Summary. Theological criteria are used to select data collection methods. In our quest of developing objectivity, we must be mindful of our own inner subjective selves. Characteristic of a problem suitable for basic research. A problem should have numerous properties to be acceptable for fundamental research. Primarily, the problem should invoke conceptual thinking, not just activity. For example, gathering data and comparing them is not indicative of real research difficulties. Statement of the problem. After deciding on a research topic, it is advisable to write it down for future reference. Because this statement will direct all subsequent study, it must be well developed and stated. Identifying sub-problems. Almost every problem has components or sub-problems worth studying. Sub-problems are frequently more manageable or researchable than the larger problem and can be addressed independently. However, the total of the sub-problem should not exceed the total of the primary problem. The role of theory in the design of research. Before assuming or hypothesizing, we should consider the function of theory in research design. But how does theory play a role in this process? Understanding how a field of knowledge emerged should assist explain theory's function in study design. All of these facts are based on personal experience or observation. Definition of theory. It should be easy to define theory once its purpose and usefulness in research are established. It is also defined as something that logically connects a set of variables. In other words, it explains discrete observations as a whole. The formation of theories. A researcher in need of a theory may not always find one. They must often be built or developed. Theory constructions also necessitates a thorough knowledge of the field's accepted facts and theories, as well as related fields. Mowley states that a good theory should meet the following criteria. First, a theory or theoretical system should permit deductions that can be tested empirically. A theory should be compatible with both observations and previously verified theories. And last, a theory should be stated as simply as possible. It should explain adequately the existing knowledge but should not be any more complex than necessary. Testing the theory. Testing theory after it has been developed or identified is the next step. Formulating hypothesis. Definition of hypothesis. The formation of one or more theoretical hypotheses is the second main stage in the scientific method. Various hypothesis definitions in the literature reflect varying perspective or emphasis. Several types of hypotheses. Working or research hypothesis, the hypothesis with which a research study begins. It should help to delimit and guide the study. Final hypothesis, the hypothesis that reflects the findings of the research study. It often is synonymous with the study's final conclusion. Particular hypothesis, a hypothesis which merely explains a specific fact or situation. For example, not all college students are skilled library users. Causal hypothesis, a hypothesis which states that there is a causal relationship between two or more variables. For example, that a particular factor or condition determines or affects another factor or condition. Alternative hypothesis, a rival hypothesis which provides another possible and plausible solution to the problem. Example, a different explanation of the same facts. Null hypothesis, a hypothesis which asserts that there is no real relationship between or among the variables in question. Inductive hypothesis, a hypothesis which moves from the particular to the general or a generalization based on observation. Deductive hypothesis, a hypothesis which shifts from the general to the particular or a hypothesis derived from a theory. Non-directional hypothesis, a hypothesis which merely indicates that a relationship or difference exists. Multivariate hypothesis, a hypothesis proposing a relationship among more than two phenomena or variables. Bivariate hypothesis, a hypothesis proposing a relationship between two phenomena or variables. Univariate hypothesis, a hypothesis concerned with only one phenomenon or variable. Sources of hypothesis. Also, a theory can be used to generate hypotheses because it is a big hypothesis or a collection of sub-hypotheses. But hypotheses rarely, if ever, just materialize. Other studies' findings are great sources for hypotheses. Developing the hypothesis. Again, the consideration of a theory and more precisely, one or more components of a theory is ideal. In some studies, the premise is merely the most fundamental assumption. Contrast basic assumption with methodological assumptions. Variables. A variable may be thought of as any property of a person, thing, event, setting, and so on that is not fixed. Intervening variable, any variable which occurs in a causal chain between some independent variable and its dependent variable. It also serves as an independent variable for the dependent variable. Antecedent variable, a variable which occurs prior to some already identified or hypothesized and dependent variable. Extraneous variable, a variable at first perceived as the real cause of some effect when in fact it was only coincidental correlate of that effect. Component variables, two or more variables which represent the same variable. Confounding or interfering variable, another influence that may affect the dependent variable, but one in which the researcher is not interested. Concepts, to arrange data and see links between variables, a researcher must first employ concepts. To conduct the researcher must convert the formal definitions of ideas into observable, quantifiable events or variables. Desirable characteristics of hypothesis. In addition to representing the simplest possible explanations of a specific phenomenon or relationship, an ideal hypothesis should possess several other characteristics, includes the following: generalizability or universality. A hypothesis with this trait should hold up in more than one situation. Compatibility with existing knowledge. A hypothesis is more likely to be generalizable if it has been based on the findings or other studies. Testability, the suitability of the hypothesis for empirical testing may be its more important characteristic. Invariability, simply put, the relationship stated in the hypothesis should not vary over a reasonable period of time. Causality, the ideal hypothesis states a relationship that is causal in nature. Example, that the independent variables actually causes or determines one or more dependent variables. Sadly, causal or predictive hypotheses are difficult to formulate in the social sciences. Testing the hypothesis. In testing the validity of a hypothesis, the researcher typically employs the deductive method. The researcher develops certain logical implications which can help to reject or support the hypothesis. Validity and reliability. Research is considered to be valid when the conclusions are true, and reliable when the findings are repeatable. Research design is the plan and structure of the research framework. It is influenced by the nature of hypothesis, the variables, the constraints of the real world, and so on. Scales. There are generally considered the four types of measurement scales. Nominal scale. The nominal or categorical scale consists of two or more name categories into which objects, individuals, or responses are classified. Ordinal scale. An ordinal scale defines the relative positions of objects or individuals with respect to a characteristic, with no implications as to the distance between positions. Interval scale. The interval scale provides a ranking of positions, as does the ordinal scale, but the intervals of measurements are equal. Ratio scale. The ratio scale is comparable to the interval scale except that it has an absolute zero, below which values cannot occur. In order for any measurement to have meaning, one must have a solid understanding of the relationship between the variable and the underlying construct that it represents. Summary. A research project adheres to the basic scientific method of inquiries consists of certain stages: identification or development of the theory, identifications of the problem, formulation of the hypothesis, and measurements as related to validity, reliability, and level.